Welcome to episode 6 of the Female Property Podcast. This is your comprehensive guide to all things property investing for newbies. I'm your host, Emma Morby, and in today's episode, we're delving into property terminology. When you're wading into property waters, it's essential to be well equipped with a few key phrases. It's like learning a new language, but much more lucrative. Some of these you may already know. See how many you get right and then share it in the comments below. First off, BTL. Don't get confused with the sandwich. It stands for buy to let. It's like saying, I'm going to buy a property, I'm going to let it to someone else live in it, and they're going to pay me rent. To be fair, it's the bread and butter of many property investors in the UK. You get to be a landlord, and if I'm honest, they get to call you when things get broken. I know that sounds very facetious, but actually landlords do make good money from buy-to-lets. Then there's capital appreciation. Sounds fancy, right? Well, it's just a fancy way of saying your property value goes up over time. Imagine your house doing sit-ups. It's like building its value muscle. Another one you're going to hear all the time is equity. Think of equity as your property piggy bank. The more you pay your mortgage, the fatter that piggy gets. And you can tap into it whenever you need. So you may sometimes hear you're in negative equity. This means your piggy bank has nothing in it. It's not a position you want to be in. But sometimes, if you go into a market crash, you can face that position. ROI, return on investment. So ROI measures how much money you make from your property. Now, the higher the ROI, the better. Leaseholder versus freeholder. So leaseholder means you're renting the land your property is on, but you don't actually own the land itself, or possibly the fabric of the building. While freeholder means you own both the property and the land it stands on. Technically speaking, the Crown owns the land in the UK. But for this purpose, that's how I'm going to explain the difference between leaseholder and freeholder. Imagine it's the difference between renting a car and owning a car. Obviously, owning a car is much better in the long run, but you might only be able to rent or lease your car in the short term. Next is yield. Yield is the income you get from your investment. It's usually expressed in a percentage, so it'll be, we get a 10% yield, we get a 20% yield. That's how you'll hear people express it. And I always imagine it as, it's my property's way of saying, I'm a cash generating machine. I'm earning you a 10% yield. It's a cash generating exercise. Then you'll know conveyancing. If you've ever bought a house, you would have heard conveyancing. This is the legal process of transferring property ownership. It's basically ensuring that all the rules are followed and that you get the deeds to that property or that leasehold from the original owner. Flipping. Most people have heard of flipping. This is like taking an old, worn-out property, giving it a makeover, and then selling it for profit. In property, it's all about buying the property at the cheapest possible value, renovating it in the most cost-effective way, and then selling it for much more than you originally bought it for, including all the renovation costs. SDLT. This stands for Stamp Duty Land Tax. I think of it as an admission fee for the property owning club. It's not, but that's how I see it. Basically, it's a tax that you pay when you purchase a property. And the costs vary depending on the property's price. And the varying tax you'll need to pay depends on whether it's your own residence or whether it's an investment property, of which you'll incur a surcharge of 3% on top of the standard stamp duty tax for that property. You will find commercial stamp duty is very different to residential stamp duty. BMV. This stands for below market value. Now, you may have heard me discuss this in previous episodes. BMV is where the property deal that you find is below the current market value of what the house prices are in that neighbourhood. It's what I call a bargain hunter's dream. It's what everyone looks for, especially if you're doing a property flip. So you may find a property that's worth 150,000, but you can buy it for 100,000. And once you do the uplift and the renovation work, it will be worth 175,000. Those are the sorts of ways you can find a below market value deal and feel like you've achieved. Now, a lot of this jargon that you'll hear being used is actually just a way of keeping track of the numbers, the property process, the property procedures. Let's look at gross yield, for instance, okay? Gross yield. This is the annual rental income divided by the property's current market value times 100. That's the simple equation to work out gross yield. The annual rental income, this basically means the total income that you expect to receive from renting out that property for a year. It includes the rent from the tenants, but don't include any expenses or deductions. Property's current market value, this is the estimated current market value of that property, which can be determined through property appraisals or market research, or just speaking to your local estate agent. So I want to give you an example to make it a bit more tangible. Suppose you have a property with an annual rental income of £15,000 and its current market value is £250,000. So to work out the gross yield, I'm going to do £15,000 divided by the £250,000 and then times by 100. And if you're sat here doing it now, you'll realise that leads you to 6%. So in this case, the gross yield for this property would be 6%. We have a number of how-to videos in one of our training programs, and often this helps bring people up to speed with the lingo and how they crunch the numbers. If you want to find out more, please feel free to reach out to us on any social media platform and we can share a little bit more information about that program. Now, I'm going to do a bit of a recap. So I'm going to dive into some key concepts. Property investing is all about location, as we've established. And actually, of course, it's all about making money, actually. You want to be profitable. But the location is important. You need to find successful property investments that will give you both cash flow and capital appreciation. Remember what ROI stood for? Return on investment, not rolling on interest, which is something I hear a lot of newbies saying. It's about how much money you'll make from your property. When we're delving deep into calculating the ROI, it's important that you understand that when people are talking to you about ROI, what they actually mean. But I think for now, all you need to understand is that it's your best friend when evaluating property deals. If the ROI looks good, then you move on to the next stage of the due diligence. Now, I want to just touch on property markets. So if you imagine a property market as a massive, ever-changing puzzle, in the UK, we've got different types of properties. You got from, the cozy flats to charming little cottages to really luxurious penthouses. The market is like a giant game of Monopoly. This is how I imagine it. And you get better the more you play it, the more you understand, the more you join in. But you have to remember there are no get out of jail free cards in real life. So you must play within the rules and invest safely, invest wisely. Don't overstretch yourself. Don't over leverage yourself. And the property market can be affected by many factors. We've seen interest rates, economic conditions, and even political standpoints can affect our economy. And subsequently, that affects the property market. I kind of associate it with a roller coaster, but it does have a pattern. Property has a cycle. But what you have to do is be prepared for the occasional twist or turn. COVID played its part in affecting the market conditions and interest rates. But if you know that the cycle that property follows and you invest safely by not overextending your borrowing, then you can be prepared for moments like COVID. There you have it. A brief crash course in the fundamentals of property investing in the UK. It's all about the right lingo, the right location, and understanding the ever-evolving market. I hope you enjoyed the introductory session. Remember, it's not rocket science, it's property investing. You just need to learn a new skill, a bit like you would do in any other job role. So we've reached the end of today's episode of The Female Property Expert. I hope you found the lesson in lingo helpful. Be sure to subscribe to keep listening and learning. And in our next episode, we're going to be covering market trends and predictions so you can stay ahead of that curve that we've spoke about. Until then, happy investing.